How y'all doing today, folks? This is the Mac Attack coming back at you as we discuss Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, talk of the NFL right now. And in preseason, before the season starts, before even training camp, head coach John Harbaugh came out in a press conference and said that Lamar Jackson will be the greatest quarterback in the NFL history when his career is over, when he retires. Now, after I got done laughing, I thought about why would a head coach come out before the season even starts and says that? It's just kind of weird, right? I have been watching football for over 50 years, and I can never remember any head coach coming out before the season and stating that. I've heard head coaches say, well, listen, we're going to have a great year. Our quarterback's playing well. He looks good. We should have a good year. He should have a good year. But never a statement like that when he retires, he's going to be the greatest quarterback in NFL history. Is Lamar's confidence hurt in some way again? Does he need some kind of validation from his head coach? If you remember in last year's playoff and postseason and the games he was in, especially the last one, Lamar Jackson had a meltdown. Throwing his helmet, stomping around the sidelines, sitting on top of the bench with no helmet on, and in a panic at the end of the game, threw interceptions. This isn't anything new for Lamar Jackson. I'm not saying Lamar Jackson isn't a great quarterback in today's NFL. I'm not. He's a playmaker, incredible athlete. Also injured now and then because of his style of running. There are a lot of teams that want to have Lamar Jackson as a starting quarterback, and we'll get to that. And let's stop making excuses for Lamar Jackson. He doesn't have weapons around him. Well, a lot of quarterbacks that won the Super Bowl didn't have big weapons around them, right? I mean, not everybody had Randy Moss and Jerry Rice and, great wide receivers. They had very good wide receivers, had a good crew, maybe a great tight end like Lamar Jackson does have. But let's stop making excuses. Lamar Jackson lost that postseason game. Too emotional. It's okay to yell at the players on the sideline to get them motivated. Right? I mean, we've seen quarterbacks do that. Almost every quarterback I've seen try to pump his team up, the defense, the offensive line, the wide receivers. But not throw tantrum fits. The Ravens have had one of the best teams in the last 6 years. So the best defenses have had a unbelievable running game. One of the best running games. Physical. And last year they did have some weapons. Coach Harbaugh is hoping that we're naive about who truly the great quarterbacks in the NFL were. Their accomplishments, the amount of Super Bowls they won. 2 MVPs just doesn't do it. Just because you're an MVP doesn't mean you're the best. It means you're valuable to your team. And you can say that about almost every quarterback. You can say that about some running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, even the pass rusher here or there. And there are players that make a difference to their team, make huge contributions. Lamar Jackson does do that. Lamar Jackson has a long way to go to be great. Never mind greatest of the great. Because there are different categories when it comes to great. And when you look back over the history of the NFL, you have to be fair, okay? A lot of things have changed from the 1940s to this year, 2024. The amount of games. Until 1960, they only played 12 games. Now they play 4 extra games. Right? 1960, it went to 14. 1978, it went to 16 games. And now we're at 17. And those extra games would add statistics, chances of going to a Super Bowl, better playoff placement. And then you got to look at the rules, folks. You can't hit the quarterback above the shoulders. You can't hit him at the knee. You can only have one step before you hit him, or it's unnecessary roughness. That was not the way it was before 1990. I think it wasn't that way before 2000. The quarterbacks got racked. And you can't tell me when the game's on the line, when a quarterback is going back in the pocket and it's 4th and 10, that you want to take a chance and get an unnecessary roughness and give him 15 yards and give him 4 more downs. You can't tell me defensive players don't think about that. The rules for wide receivers have changed immensely. You can't touch him after 5 yards. That was never that way before. The interference call was a 15-yard penalty at one time. Now it's at the placement of the foul. You got to turn your head around to look like you're making a play at the ball. When you turn your head around, 2 things are going to happen, folks. One of the big things that's going to happen is that the receiver is going to catch the ball. Another thing is you're going to hit him anyway. And then it's an option call for the ref. It's a judgment call. So you can't tell me that these things don't exist, that these do not help today's quarterbacks. Defenseless wide receiver. That wasn't a penalty back then. You went over the middle. I know a wide receiver personally got his jaw broke. Now the defensive back or linebacker has to wait for the wide receiver to take 2 steps before he tackles him. And you can't tell me the defensive backs don't think about that or the linebackers don't think about it. They do. They don't want to give up a 15-yard penalty. Not at the end of the game when it matters. They're conscious of this stuff. You see them trying to pull up a lot and not hit a player when he just goes down. You see it. It's in their minds. They're coached that way now. You know, some people say it's heading to flag football. That's for another day, another conversation. But it's a lot more tougher to play defense than it's ever been. And, of course, that benefits the quarterbacks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a list of quarterbacks that I think are the greatest of all time. And then we're going to put them in the greatest of the great. And you got to start out with Otto Graham. Otto Graham in the 1940s, 50s was a dual threat quarterback. Right? He could beat you with his arm. He could beat you with his legs. He had 44 touchdowns. And he was in 10 championship games, winning 7. Leading the Browns to 7 wins in the championship game of the NFL, which was the Super Bowl back then. And this is before Jimmy Brown got there. Before Jim Brown was there. This is when Otto Graham played. Tom Brady has just recently tied him, going to 10 Super Bowls, winning 7 in the Super Bowl era. So Otto Graham would be the first one you have to think about. I'm going chronologically. Johnny Unitas, 50s to 60s, a master of the 2-minute drill. Over 40,000 yards passing, folks. 3-time MVP, 4-time champion, 3 championships, and 1 Super Bowl against Dallas. He's thrown for more yards than a lot of the quarterbacks today that have won Super Bowls and are in the Hall of Fame. So that's number 2 on the list. Number 3, Fran Tarkenton, the mad scrambler. Did things nobody else saw in the history of football. Extending plays, running when he had to. Fran Tarkenton threw for over 40,000 yards, 40,561 to be exact. Went to 3 Super Bowls, went to 3 Super Bowls as a runner-up. He didn't win a Super Bowl, but he got his team there. Dan Marino. In the 1980s, him and Joe Montana are the 2 greatest of that decade. Dan Marino threw for, if you could believe this, over 61,361 yards. One-time MVP, went to the Super Bowl once. Joe Montana, 40,000 yards, 40,561 yards, 4-time Super Bowl champion. 2-time Super Bowl and MVP. Multiple MVPs during the regular season. John Elway in the 1990s, 51,000 yards. MVP during the regular season, 2-time Super Bowl champion, went to the Super Bowl 5 times. Peyton Manning in the 2000s, 71,840 yards, 5-time MVP, 2-time Super Bowl champion, went to three Super Bowls in all. Aaron Rodgers in the 2010s, and he's not done yet, folks. He still has a chance to win another Super Bowl. 59,055 yards, 4 times MVP during the regular season, 1-time Super Bowl champion. Patrick Mahomes in the 2020s, 28,000 yards already, 3-time Super Bowl champion. Out of 4 Super Bowl appearances. Then there's Tom Brady. Tom Brady with over 89,000 yards, 7-time Super Bowl champion, 10 Super Bowl MVPs, Super Bowl MVP, 3 times regular season MVP. Those are the great quarterbacks. There are other quarterbacks you could put in there. Troy Aikman. You could put Troy Aikman in there, 3-time Super Bowl champion. But Troy only threw for 32,000 yards. Dallas was a running team. Not that Troy didn't make throws, big plays. But Dallas had Emmitt Smith, and that's how they won their games for the most part. You could say Jim Kelly if you want. Jim Kelly only had 35,467 yards. Went to multiple Super Bowls, didn't win one. So Johnny Unitas, back in the 60s, threw for more yards than these guys. With different rules, less games. So that's your great quarterbacks. And Patrick Mahomes is in there, quite frankly, right now because of his 3-time Super Bowls, right? 3 times he won the Super Bowl. Or 2 times, sorry. 3-time champion, going for a 3-peat. So it is. I'm right the first time I said it. Then you have the greatest of the great, and this is where people move in and out of it, out of the lineup, right? Otto Graham, just because he led his team to 10 championships, winning 7, I think remains in the greatest of the great conversation. Less games, no, not these new rules. Probably would have threw for another 10,000, 20,000 yards if he played under today's conditions. Johnny Unitas, easy, right? 40,000 yards in less games. Less games. Not these new rules. He has to be part of the greatest of the great conversation. Now, Dan Marino, despite his personal, stats, which were unbelievable, you have to kind of move him off the list. Again, not that he's not great. He is great. Greatest of the great guy. You've got to take this into account. Joe Montana moves up with the 4-0 in Super Bowls. He moves up. Troy Aikman, as I said, because of the yardage, the personal stats, Dallas' running game, he's not in it. Jim Kelly, definitely not in it. Fran Tarkenton gets kicked out, right? You went to three Super Bowls. You didn't even win one. So Fran Tarkenton isn't greatest of the great. John Elway is greatest of the great. All those yards, all those personal stats, 5 times in the Super Bowl, 2 times he wins it, an MVP in the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers. Sorry, Aaron. 1 Super Bowl win out after all those years. You came close, but you didn't finish the job. So Aaron Rodgers has to slide out. This is where Patrick Mahomes comes back into the conversation. He's not done yet, folks. He could win 2-3 more. He's got the coach. He's got the team. And he's not playing in the toughest conference either. You got to mention that. Right now, San Diego, Denver, the Raiders, you know. So they're in position to make another run. Peyton Manning's definitely is in that greatest of great. And, of course, Tom Brady. That's the greatest of the great. These are the quarterbacks that John Harbaugh says Lamar Jackson is going to pass. When he retires, he's going to be higher than all these other quarterbacks. There's a few things that Lamar has to work on, right? We all know it. We all know it. He still wants to run for a touchdown almost every time he runs with the football. Now, I know I've seen him run out of bounds, fall down, but when the game's on the line, he wants to get that score. He's very a competitor. At the end of the game, he's got to become more accurate, right? I mean, he's got to. He can't throw those interceptions. You can't lose the game for your team. Great quarterbacks don't do that. Josh Allen, who is similar to Lamar Jackson, has more passing yards right now. He's another one. End of the game. Down by the goal line. Throws interceptions. So, in today's NFL, Lamar Jackson is special, right? If you want to say the greatest running quarterback of all time, okay, I'll give him that. The only one he's behind right now is Michael Vick. He will pass him eventually as long as he stays healthy and on the field. But there's a lot of great running quarterbacks that never won a Super Bowl a couple of years ago, right? Jalen Hurts. They have plays. What I mean by a running quarterback is that there's plays called for him to run with the football or an option for him to run with the football. You know, Randall Cunningham got to the championship game. Cam Newton made it to Super Bowl and lost. Jalen Hurts, as I just spoke of, had that big fumble where they could have won the game. So no quarterback in NFL history, no running quarterback, plays designed for him to run, has ever won a Super Bowl. Maybe Lamar will be the first one. You've got to be cool under pressure. You got to be something that a team looks at in the offense and is calm. Joe Montana, right when he's doing the final drive of the championship game, says, I wouldn't rather be anywhere else with you guys. That's cool. That's calm. Right? Now, look at the former quarterback that Lamar replaced, Joe Flacco, right? Joe Flacco threw for over 49,000 yards, almost 44. He won a Super Bowl, 2012 Super Bowl MVP. In their Super Bowl year, he led his team to beat the Denver Broncos with Peyton Manning, and the New England Patriots with Tom Brady. They call a play the miracle of mile high miracle in Denver. With 30 seconds left, 40 seconds left, Joe Flacco hits the wide receiver, almost last play of the game, sends it into overtime. That's calm. That's cool. That's great under pressure. Now, to be fair, in today's NFL, most teams would trade their quarterback for Lamar Jackson. And I would too, as I was GM. In the AFC, there's maybe 3 teams that would not, definitely would not, right? Kansas City would not trade Patrick Mahomes for Lamar. Cincinnati would not trade Joe Burrows for Lamar Jackson. And Buffalo would not trade Josh Allen for Lamar Jackson. The Jets with Aaron Rodgers, because of Aaron Rodgers' age in the beginning of the season, before the season starts, might. They might. It's close. CJ Stroud, maybe, maybe not. But the rest of the teams would. No doubt in my mind. I don't care who they got at quarterback. Tua? Yes. Justin Herbert? Yes. If I'm the GM, I'm pulling that. And the NFC, even less. The only team that I know for sure would not trade their quarterback for Lamar Jackson is the Eagles. They would hold on to Jalen Hurts. Younger version of Lamar. Not as aggressive running with the ball, but a good running quarterback. Brought him to the Super Bowl. They would keep Hurts. The rest are iffy. They really are. If you're the San Francisco 49ers, would you rather have Brock Purdy or Lamar Jackson? I'd take Lamar. If you're the Detroit Lions, Jared Goff, Lamar Jackson. If I'm the GM, I'm taking Lamar. Same thing with Green Bay with Jordan Love. Even though he signed that big, huge contract, I'm taking Lamar Jackson. Now, of course, the fans of the team, I can hear it right now, you know. I can hear the Green Bay fans, the Detroit fans, the 49er fans, even the Dallas fans with Dak Prescott. No, we don't need Lamar Jackson. We don't need him. Foolish. And the coaches, same thing. They would never come out publicly and say, listen, I'd rather have Lamar Jackson than Brock Purdy. They would never come out and say that. I'm sure behind closed doors, they're considering it. And if I'm the GM, as I said, I'm pulling the plug. I'm taking Lamar Jackson. If I got Brock Purdy, if I got Jordan Love, if I got Jared Goff, I'm taking Lamar Jackson. He's that good of a playmaker. I think Baltimore made a mistake in building their offense totally around Lamar Jackson, right? And based off his running. And that's the problem, because Lamar Jackson, at the end of the game, before he reads the whole field, I've seen it in the game, the pocket's intact. All he has to do, hang in there another couple seconds, read the field, make the throw. Lamar's going to run with the ball. Sees that opening, he's going. And that's something he has to change. Emotionally, you got to calm down a little bit, Lamar. Take it easy, man. The team follows your lead. That's something he has to work on too. If I'm John Harbaugh, this is what I'm concentrating on with Lamar Jackson. They say, let Lamar be Lamar. Well, Lamar's Lamar. In a big game, Lamar isn't going to win the game. Proof's in the pudding. He's not going to win that game. And some folks think, well, it's a matter of time. Maybe. But I definitely would have him with some kind of anger management or something. Lamar, you got to calm down, dude. You're the leader. You're the leader out there. They look up to you. And if you're having fits and you're panicking and you're going a little nuts, that's not a calming effect on the team. Now the Ravens, in all their all their wiseness, very wise, they bring in King Henry, a great running back, kind of in his last legs, right? They say it's to take pressure off Lamar. I don't know how that happens. You're going to tell me that you're not going to have an option where he hands off to Derrick Henry or keeps the ball. They're not going to do that anymore. I don't believe that. I'll believe it when I see it. He is what he is. There's a couple things you got to tweak. That's all. He has a long way to go to become the greatest quarterback of all time. And the only reason I can see Harbaugh saying that in public is there's some kind of last year hangover. Is he still upset about last year? You got to get over your losses, no matter how bad they are or how big they are. John Elway had to. Right? Lost his first 3 Super Bowls. You got to get over them if you want to be great. So what Harbaugh said was wrong. Is Lamar going to be the future greatest in the NFL? I highly doubt it. He's got to win at least 3 Super Bowls. He's got to put up some unbelievable passing stats to do so. I don't think that's his wheelhouse, right? I mean, you got to at least win 3 Super Bowls to be considered the greatest of the great. 7, Tom Brady, 89,000 yards. That's way beyond his reach. I don't even know if he'll do as good as Patrick Mahomes does during this spot in history. So John Harbaugh, calm down, right? He doesn't need any more pressure. Will the Ravens go to the Super Bowl? It's possible. It's very possible. With Lamar Jackson, very possible. They got a tough division they play in. Cleveland Browns, the Cincinnati Bengals, Pittsburgh Steelers are no joke, man. They all are tough teams, a tough team to beat. And you got to get by that regular season, and then you go into the playoffs, and then you're playing the best of the best. Tough position to be in. If he was in the NFC on a good team, have a better chance. But I'm here to tell you, folks, Lamar Jackson is not going to be the future greatest quarterback of all time. It's not happening. Just be one of the greatest. Be happy with that.